Good evening and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. There's a buzz in Ignace this week, and it isn't coming from the nearby sawmill or the insects. The town held a public event to highlight major industrial developments which could bring new life to the shrinking town. And there's also a new branding strategy to attract more business to Ignace. Adam Riley reports.
Excited about Ignace in these times right now. It's going to be a prosperous town again.
The town of Ignace has a new look to represent itself to the world after 9 months of consultations and meetings to rebrand the town. Ignace Mayor Lee Kennard says the rebrand is part of a plan to get the community ready for major developments in the future.
I always like to use Trump's expression. We wanted to make Ignace great again. Okay. No, not really. We're just a bit, Ignace is about the whole of northwestern Ontario has been on a downturn, and we undertook to try to make things go the other direction.
The brainchild of the initiative to give the Ignace brand a facelift is Jason Felix, who began the process of the rebrand last year, shortly after he was hired as the community's economic development officer. Previously, he had rolled out a similar project in Smooth Rock Falls. He says public consultation was a critical part of the design.
Along the process in establishing our brand, we had several public consultations with the public to contribute towards the outcome. So we basically wanted to identify a brand that really resonates with our residents, so that they can be ambassador.
The reveal comes at a time of great potential for the community. Officials from Resolute Forest Products were at the public event to talk about the success of the local sawmill, which reopened a few years ago. Ignace is also a highway starting point for a planned road into the Ring of Fire mining development, and the Nuclear Waste Management Organization continues to look at Ignace as a potential site for a $22 billion nuclear waste repository. NWMO Vice President Ben Balfadel also spoke at the rebranding event.
The vision, they have to develop it on their own. When we talk about community well-being, it is not up to the NWMO to decide if the project is going to enhance the well-being of a community. They have to decide this for themselves.
Felix says over the coming months, residents and those passing through Ignace will see signs of the rollout, including the removal and replacement of the stone signs seen behind me on both the east and west ends of town. However, those feeling nostalgic need not worry, as they will be moved to the town beach area where they will be greeting visitors as they arrive in the town by boat. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Communities along the North Shore got a chance to chime in this past week about Hydro One's proposed power line from Thunder Bay to Wawa called the Lake Superior Link. The company conducted a series of open houses in towns along the route, laying out its proposal. A key component of its plan is to use and upgrade existing Hydro One infrastructure through Puckasaw National Park. The company claims it's the most cost-effective solution, saying it will use 50% less land and cost $100 million less than the proposed east-west tie transmission line. The utility has also proposed a detour should the Puckasaw route not pan out, which will loop through White River. That option would use 36% less land. However, a dollar figure wasn't posted to that claim. At Tuesday's open house in Terrace Bay, only 5 residents came out to learn about the project. John Turcott is the president of the TNT Properties. As a business owner, he's interested in economic benefits for the community.
Some of the work, you know, whether it's the tradesmen in the area or managing of the project, the retailers in the area, people who have storage facilities and office space to rent. It would be nice to see all of the communities get a part of that.
Hydro One did not provide anyone to speak to the media at any of their presentations in the region. The Ontario Energy Board will make its decision in the fall on which proposal will go ahead. A 65-year-old man is facing 9 charges of sexual assault on a person under 16 years of age and 9 counts of sexual exploitation. They come after 7 men came forward to the OPP with allegations of sexual assault, which they say took place between 1989 and 1991 in Sioux Lookout. The accused, a resident of Texas, has been arrested in the state and will be extradited to Canada pending the outcome of U.S. court proceedings. A number of organizations joined First Nation partners for a regional energy conference in Thunder Bay, and the main topic was the multiple transmission projects currently underway in the region. The conference focused on 3 different projects: the Watay Power Project, the East-West Tie Supercom transmission line, and the Greenstone transmission project. The goal was for all parties to come together and learn from one another and share different practices to help one another grow. CEO of Watay Power, Margaret Kennequanash, says Watay will be the majority owners of its line, but is still working to involve as many Indigenous people as possible.
Even though we're going to own it, at the same time, how are we looking at the protocols of our Indigenous people and the highly complex regulatory system? How are we going to work that in to make sure that our people have meaningful involvement and participation?
Everything about this has been talking about long-term sustainability. So, I mean, obviously, when you talk about a transmission project, that's a long-term source of revenue. We have people that are being trained, I mean, really across all of northwestern Ontario.
A number of employers were also at the conference, trying to recruit those who may be interested in a trade that can help build any of the 3 transmission projects. Nearly 40 different First Nations will be involved in the 3 developments. The Ontario Provincial Police are hoping to address a recent spike in fatal highway collisions involving transports. A 24-hour safety blitz called Operation Corridor was conducted this week, aimed at improving the safety of all riders traveling on the highway. So far this year, the OPP has responded to more than 3,000 transport-related crashes and have reported 25 fatalities on Ontario highways. That's a 25% increase from the same time last year. And police say transport drivers were at fault in a large number of those tragedies. The 24-hour blitz saw the OPP and the MTO pull over transport vehicles province-wide, inspecting mechanical and administrative aspects of the trucks. OPP Commissioner Vince Hawks explains how Operation Corridor will also help keep the highway safe in other ways.
It's tied into other strategies, like for the distracted driving piece that's linked to transport truck drivers. That's huge. We had one in East Region yesterday where not only distracted driving but impaired operation of a transport truck driver. And you know the significance of that when that truck is traveling down the highway at 110 kilometers an hour and there's a slight distraction, or in this case an impaired, that can cause significant casualties, death, carnage on the highway.
The OPP also flagged transport vehicles who are committing moving violations, such as driving aggressively or driving too closely to other vehicles on the road. The police say the potential for tragedy involving the big vehicles is very high, and they hope to instill a sense of accountability with Operation Corridor. There are no serious injuries to report after a collision between a car and a transport truck on Highway 17 Wednesday near Marathon. OPP were called to the incident near Ripple Lake after a car crossed the center line and collided with an eastbound transport. A 45-year-old Ohio man had to be extricated by the Terrace Bay Fire Department. He suffered only minor injuries. The driver of the transport wasn't injured. An investigation into the crash continues. As the current term of council nears its end in Marathon, councillors and administration are trying to finish as many projects as possible. This week, council dealt with urban beautification, new railway taxation models, and a budget surplus, while also bidding farewell to some familiar faces around the council table. Adam Riley reports.
There could be more money for urban beautification in Marathon. On Monday, council voted in favor of entering into an agreement with the Association of the Municipalities of Ontario for $40,000 in Main Street revitalization funding, which will go towards improving flower beds along Peninsula Road. However, CAO Daryl Skwarczynski says the town wants to work with groups before starting any specific project.
We've made some great strides in recent years in trying to clean up and beautify Peninsula Road, obviously the main road into Marathon. So, before we actually just go out and spend the money, on one-off projects, I think we want to come up with a coordinated plan.
Administration also recommended to council that the rollout of the funding be delayed until the next council is formed this fall, as the funding is available until 2020. Council is also looking at lobbying the province for a change in the railway taxation model. Councillor Kelly Tabushi says rates recently increased from $35 to $110 per acre, which netted the town an additional $10,000. While the increase is a start, he and other councillors feel a different taxation model is needed for the community.
We wanted based more on tonnage because we are servicing one main rail crossing and we have two emergency exit or crossings also. We incur costs but we didn't feel we were being reflective on the assessments we were getting.
One of those costs was the replacement of a road crossing, which cost the municipality $350,000. Administration also presented a gift to council of $194,000 through a surplus from the 2017 operations budget. That money won't be spent immediately and will be used as leverage for future projects.
Anytime we have an opportunity to generate a surplus, we certainly don't budget one, but when we do have one at the end of the year, I think it's because we've had solid management on the operations side of the budget, and with our labor force, that we recommend to council that we put that into reserves.
Council also bid farewell to its 2 student councillors as their term has come to an end. Tabushi says having local students on council gave them valuable information from a youth perspective.
We wanted to try and engage youth in the municipal process, and hopefully it will get them interested enough and then again to instill that rights of a citizen, they maybe even their duties as a citizen.
According to Tabushi, the student councillor program has been very successful so far and is looking forward to seeing new students who will join them this fall. Adam Riley, TBT News.
And Marathon may soon seize ownership of one of the community's shopping malls. The property along Peninsula Road houses a grocery store, a hair salon, and a gymnastics school, along with 2 vacant spaces. The owner currently owes the town more than $400,000 in back taxes. CAO Daryl Skorczynski says that an amount that high in a community the size of Marathon is always a concern. And while the town has started the process to take over the property, he notes the community isn't interested in owning commercial buildings and hopes to find new owners for the mall as soon as possible.
There are different options available to the municipality, both under the Ontario, regulation process as well as our procurement bylaws. This is really just the first step to see, what the interest is out there, if there is any, in assuming, this type of infrastructure in the community. If we don't get any interested bidders, we'll certainly go back as administration and look at other recommendations.
Skorczynski says the town will take over the property in order to recoup as much money as possible because the building provides a good percentage of municipal revenue. Earlier this year, it was announced that TD Bank will close its branch, leaving another vacancy in the mall. M&R fire crews were busy near Marathon this week after a forest fire broke out near Highway 17. The fire was spotted by a passing motorist around 4:30 Monday afternoon. A crew of firefighters from the ministry base in Greenstone was flown in, and some nearby residents came as well to help keep the blaze from spreading. The fire was fully extinguished by 9 o'clock that evening. The M&R also sent several aircraft to the area as a precaution, including a bird dog plane which flew low over the fire looking for hotspots. A helicopter and 2 water bombers were also brought in, but no water had to be dropped from above. There's still no word on a possible cause. Well, coming up after the break, newly minted MPP Greg Rickford lashes out at the previous Liberal government over 4-laning delays on Highway 17. Michael Gravel is denying claims made by the newly elected Kenora-Rainy River MPP that Liberal favoritism influenced highway four-laning priorities in the region. Greg Rickford made that statement after his recent election win. The PC member points out that highway twinning between Kenora and the Manitoba border was announced 10 years ago, about the same time as the four-laning project from Thunder Bay to Nipigon.
2/3 of that twinning is completed in Thunder Bay, between Thunder Bay and Nipigon, and we haven't even gotten a shovel in the ground out here. That smacks of political partisanship. It smacks of serving the interests of the Liberal candidates in Thunder Bay, and we're going to put a stop to that.
The former federal minister is expected to become a key member of new Premier Doug Ford's PC cabinet when it's named at the end of the month. Rickford says he'll make sure four-laning near Kenora finally moves ahead after years of delays. Gravel was the minister responsible for the Northern Highways program for most of the last decade. The longtime MPP will no longer hold that portfolio after his party was decimated in the recent election. Gravel rejects Rickford's comments and insists delays are due to significant consultation issues with First Nations.
Certainly assure my friend and colleague, Mr. Rickford, that indeed there's no partisanship involved here. This is all about trying to find a way to work our way through to a process whereby we can actually get the construction started. Ministry of Transportation has worked hard on it. I certainly worked hard on it as well, and we want to get that project going. If Mr. Rickford can find a way to resolve those issues that are still outstanding, then that would be tremendous.
Gravel says he's looking forward to working with Rickford on regional issues and adds he's willing to help ease the transition if Rickford becomes the new Minister of Northern Development and Mines. Despite a very tight election night loss in Thunder Bay Atikokan, the Ontario Liberal Party has decided it will not ask for an official recount. The final margin of victory for successful NDP candidate Judith Monteith-Farrell was 81 votes. Former MPP Bill Morrow says an official count of ballots showed no deviation. Liberal Party officials in Toronto confirm they won't seek a review. MPP Michael Gravel was in Toronto Wednesday for the final meeting of the outgoing Liberal caucus. The party saw its seat total plummet from 55 down to just 7. That means the Liberals no longer have official party status, and unless Doug Ford's PC government decides to amend the rules, the remaining Liberals will no longer receive money to hire research staff. Gravel insists the situation won't impact staff employed at his Thunder Bay Superior North constituency office in Thunder Bay. The people there will continue to serve residents of the riding regarding issues and concerns about government services and the various ministries. Gravel and the other 6 remaining Liberals now have to figure out how they'll deal with the loss of party status.
We haven't worked out all the details of what it means from a staffing point of view, but it certainly will obviously limit my opportunity to have a kind of staffing that I would normally expect to have or hope to have in the legislature. We're working out those details now, just trying to find out what will happen with the staffing at Queen's Park, the staffing in my constituency office. We're going to make sure that we continue to provide the kind of service that my constituents certainly expect. That's number one priority. And then my other number one priority is to make sure that I'm a strong voice down at Queen's Park.
Gravel and his Liberal colleagues will now be treated as independent members at Queen's Park, meaning they may be barred from participating in some debates in the legislature. The 4 cities hoping to attract a Ring of Fire ferrochrome processing plant will have to be patient for a little while longer. Thunder Bay, Sudbury, Timmins, and Sault Ste. Marie have all submitted bids to host the facility. In February, Noront Resources announced it had hired Mississauga-based engineering firm Hatch to evaluate the bids and indicated the process should be completed sometime in June. But now a spokesperson says the decision is taking longer than expected and may not come until the end of July. That plant is expected to create 500 direct jobs for whichever community wins the bid. But in a discouraging sign for Thunder Bay's hopes, Noront Resources CEO Alan Coutts was quoted at a recent mining conference in Timmins saying the best situation would be to repurpose existing infrastructure. Both Timmins and Sudbury have major smelting plants that are no longer in operation. The city of Kenora is going ahead with a plan to create an access point for cottage owners on the north side of Dufresne Island. The island, which is split by the Kenora Bypass, has summer residences on both the north and south sides. Residents to the south are able to use the Barrowwinder Road for access and parking, while those on the north side have to park along the highway. Last year, Council passed a motion to create a place for those residents to park safely off the highway, and last month voted in favor of an agreement with the Ministry of Transportation. Operations and Infrastructure Jeff Hawley explains.
One stall for every lot on the north side of the island is the parking lot size, which I believe is about 26 stalls. We will be constructing that parking lot, but thereafter the residents will be maintaining it, including any snow clearing or other work that's required.
Hawley expects the construction, which will cost $400,000, to be finished by the end of the year. Ontario Provincial Police have been called in to assist the Treaty 3 police with a sudden death investigation on the Big Grassy River First Nation. This follows the discovery of a body of a young woman behind an outdoor skating rink in the community Wednesday evening. Efforts are underway to officially identify the remains, but earlier on Wednesday, a search was launched after a 16-year-old girl from the community was reported missing. The Northwest Region Crime Unit and Forensic Identification Services are assisting with the investigation. OPP has also issued a reminder to the public to be aware of personal safety at all times. Well, coming up next, the city of Dryden continues to seek solutions for an ongoing deer problem. While Dryden continues to work on reducing its debt and moving forward after a messy labor dispute with its firefighters, it's also contending with one of its oldest issues, deer. The city has been exploring ways to control the population, which has exploded in recent years. But as Adam Riley reports, options are limited.
After months of discussions and public meetings, it appears there is very little the city of Dryden can do to curb the urban deer population within city limits, which isn't sitting well with Mayor Greg Wilson.
There's a lot of deer, and they are territorial. They don't move in and out. They come and they stay, and then they have babies, and then they stay. And so I'm sort of disappointed that we can't come up with something that's more practical and impactful.
Wilson says it's not just gardens in the city which are at risk with the deer, it is also resident safety and potential vehicle on deer collisions. An idea brought forward to the Dryden Deer Committee was the placement of birth control laden salt licks around the city, However, spokesperson Aaron Triss says that brings in a new realm of safety concerns.
You cannot control how much of the drugs the deer are actually getting with the birth control. You cannot control if someone's dog goes up and licks it. You cannot control if pieces break off and are in contact with some children. How do you control if that deer was killed out in the wild, that is not transferred through the meat to the human?
Trist also cites that many residents are unaware that they can hunt within city limits, but only within the area of the former Barclay Township and with a bow and arrow within 1 acre of property, 22s and shotguns within 30 acres, or a high-caliber firearm within 60 acres of property. Residents are also reminded there is a bylaw against feeding the deer within city limits, and dogs are not permitted to chase wildlife. Despite the lack of options, Wilson is still hopeful something can be done eventually to control the deer.
It's not that it's dead in the water, it's that we are unable to come up with a quick fix solution.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
And that'll do it for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching.